2, 1, 2, taking over, taking over. Native One, Assistant 2. Get things started here in just a couple minutes. Uh-oh. Here we go, getting ready to take off. Come on in, come on in. Woo. Well, they Indian Collective, Native One Institute. I'm getting dialed on right now on another device so I can see what's going on out there with you guys. All right, all right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. For the power hour. We get busy here. Today, if you wouldn't mind, let me see if I can see here through the anybody would comment. Let me know how it sounds. Shelly, let me know how that volume sounds. Can you hear me? Or is the music too loud? Not to scare you. It's not going to be a whole day of DJ stuff. This is just the open. It's the beginning. I got a few things to share today. Kind of the behind the scenes secret sauce to my success, if you will. And some of it may help some other content providers out there. I'll go ahead and kick in here. Okay, you can hear both. Great. And I'm going to keep the levels where they are. Because later on, I am going to do a little something here. I am going to do a little something as an exhibition. Uh-oh. But that's for later. For right now, Hawaii, Jaje Wite, Marcus. Hello, my name is Marcus. I'm Osage, Potawatomi, Delaware, Puerto Rican on my dad's side. And I'm thrilled to take over for Native Wellness Institute today for their Power Hour, Hour of Power. We're going to take over this Facebook Live for a little bit. I might not take the whole hour. We'll see. And if you're a scroller, feel free to scroll. If you don't want the eyeball to check and say, oh my God, they tuned in, you can just keep it right there where you can hear me. And you don't have to, get all, you can be as in or as out as you would like. If you want to scroll back from time to time later on, I think this will be on their YouTube channel. So this will be in its entirety for you to digest later at your leisure. So in the meantime, in between times, I'm trying to learn a little tech stuff. So we'll see if I have pulled it off or not. And so if you can see my screen out there, go ahead and hit me with the thumbs up. Maybe that might help me as I'll be watching for you here to see if I'm tracking or not. One time, I think the last time I was on, there was my words were backwards, and I had to have a good Samaritan out there to notify me to say, hey man, your words is backwards. And good thing they caught me when they did, or I'd have been backwards the whole time. So just double checking. You guys can see the screen out there. You can see me in the corner. And you see me on that camera right there. Perfect. All right. So this takeover, a little behind the scenes, like I said, a little secret sauce to the success, if you will, however you want to define that. What I wanted to do with this time is something that I've never done. It's something that some would consider maybe counterintuitive to do. And, those of us in this profession that, our commerce is based on traveling and sharing content. And then during this disruption, our ability to travel and gather and share content has changed dramatically. And so that could cause a reaction of, let's hold on to everything. And it's real easy to get into what I call a scarcity mindset, to where you're so afraid of loss that you hold on to everything at your own detriment. And so instead, one of the things I've tried to do is whenever there's a situation where there's a disruption or there's such a huge change that causes my instincts to want to retract, I try to tell myself instead, give. That's how I try to steer through that, is to say, well, no, if all the markers say hold back, maybe I should give more freely and just let Creator, take care of it on his end. So that being said, there's some tools and some tips that have gone into the why behind what I do that I've shared with people privately, and I've shared with people, in some small levels. But I thought, you know what? I mean, tomorrow's not guaranteed. Tomorrow's not promised. And if somebody could use this information, I want to make sure it's not stuck in my head. If you can get one thing out of this today, then I'd rather share it. First of all, that's how you spell my name, Emcee One. But more importantly, One Entertainment is entertainment with the inner in mind. That's why I spell it with the INNER, entertainment. One, entertainment. Yay, for doing something you've never done. I love it. Yeah, I'm doing that, Ruth. So here we go. One, entertainment is entertainment with the inner in mind. And so I leverage my work in the entertainment field, right? Speaking to the lives of young people, but I'm not just a DJ. So some people in passing might have seen me before in a DJ capacity, and it's real easy to get in that little box. I'm gonna challenge some of us to think outside the box, even maybe perceive others outside the box. And so not just a DJ, I'm also a youth advocate, leadership trainer, conference. I work heavily in conference production for a lot of national conferences, some out front and some behind the scenes. Some of the conferences that you may have been attending may have had me working in the background of it. And so I've came through an entertainment background, but also a youth facilitator. Look at that, Native Wellness Institute, old school, throwback. What? Been in it for a minute. All right. The logo's better today. So, but I leverage my time in the entertainment world with to speak into the lives of young people, right? So I have the entertainment side, which I choose to put that in the context of entertainment, right? Entertainment with the inner in mind, so that I can also speak into the lives of young people nationwide through different organizations, different conferences, different communities, staff trainings, working with my brother, working with different organizations, teen conference, working with foster care, different tribal, business ventures, just sharing content. At the end of the day, you see DJ and you think one thing, but at the end, if you strip all the layers back and all the levels back, really at the end of the day, we're content providers, providing content. And so what I kind of wanted to peel back today and offer some people was some of the behind the scenes of not just what I do, but how I do certain things and why. Because there's an enormous amount of psychology and framework and intentionality that goes into some of the small, subtle things that I do and have led to me getting to do what I do for a living. There's some intentionality behind it. Like, for instance, take this picture for example. You got a native blanket, you got turntables, and you got classrooms, you got students, right? Not one of those things go together. Why would you put those together? In my world, I fuse them together in a very unique way. I put them together. Now, those turntables that you see there in this picture are what's called a controller. I'm old school, so I also have a set of turntables with vinyl. All my old school heads out there, remember vinyl. You might want to inform the young bucks what records are. So I started on vinyl, have them in the other room, and so the evolution of this format of DJ has changed a little bit, and I'm going to go into that. And just real briefly, this isn't like a DJ workshop, if you will. This is more of the nuts and bolts of the behind the scenes. So it's not just DJ stuff, if you'll bear with me, of how we integrate and why we integrate some of these principles and some of these items into our programming. Because you think, why would these students, native blanket and turntables, go together? Well, I can give you a backstage pass on that. I'm sharing this so that you can have some behind the scenes, some programming elements. So you'll be like, oh, maybe you can translate those into your work. Maybe you can translate that into how you do what you do, and it might help you that way. But more importantly for me today, maybe there's a young person watching this, or someone out there, maybe young at heart, but still got the love for the tables, and you want to incorporate this into your line of work. This is something you've seen. Maybe you've been to one of these conferences and you came to the turntables and you've hung out with me a little bit, and you thought to yourself, man, I want to do that. Well, I'm gonna throw some tips your way. Some of them you'll be able to use for that, but not just for DJs. So if you're not a DJ out there, you're not going to get into that, but you are a content provider and you do go to conferences and you do share, your good medicine, you're good with other people, then there might be some other tips that you could translate into your own way of working. And so that's the goal today, is to share some of these programming elements, why I do them, how I do them. And so you can use those. And then maybe also to encourage some young buck out there, some young lady that's on the tables, because I'll be honest with you, the first step of invisible leadership is you got to look for your replacement day one and know that none of this is guaranteed. And I can't take none of this with me. Even this position that I hold at some of these conferences and the prestigious position that I feel like I'm in, that's not mine. I don't own that. And so I'm looking for who's next, who would be willing to assume that role. As I move more to the behind the scenes, who's going to be the young person that does that, especially at these youth conferences, because my belief is at these youth conferences, it should be a youth. So we'll unpack some of that. Before we do that, some of you out there might be a little moderately hip hop challenged, if you will. So if you're hip hop challenged, give me like 2.5 minutes. We won't go too hard on this, but I want to give you like how this medium started, so you can see then why and how I apply it to native conferences. Okay, so yeah, there's a DJ, but hip hop was actually created with 4 elements. And I'm gonna break down kind of how they came into existence. But in addition to the DJ, there was the B-boys, B-girls, right? The break crew, the break community, the graph art murals. I'm talking about like Joni plus Chachi on some wall somewhere. I'm talking about like beautiful depictions of murals and art. And those were also giving people the signs of the times, similar to how people groups all over the world use pictographs and wall art to tell the stories of the culture. That's the same way this manifested. And I'll share how that came out in just a second. But then there's also the MC. Now, I'm an MC. I go by Emcee One because I'm an MC, but I had to be an MC to be able to DJ. I wanted to DJ so bad when I was young, but I couldn't afford equipment. So I would just drool over the DJs as they would do their thing. I would just watch them and be like, oh man, I want to be able to DJ, but I couldn't afford it. We were broke, came from a long, surrounded by alcoholics and addicts of various different degrees. And so the idea of owning your own gear was just like foreign, right? Whether it was $1,000 or $10,000, it didn't matter to me. Might as well be $1 million. There was no way I was going to have it. But as MCing put me in proximity to other people that are doing the same kind of stuff. I've said before, if what you step towards, you attract. What you attract follows you around and gives you opportunities for more of what you're stepping towards. So as I step towards this, I befriended people in the same lane. So I had some friends, Culture Shock Camp. I could give a shout out here to Brian Frijo, who let me set up, tear down, let me learn the game on his equipment. I couldn't afford my own equipment. He had equipment. And so as he was doing this, he was probably one of the first I saw begin to fuse this. He was a facilitator, but also a DJ. Now at the time back then, some of those were still incredibly separated. And my goal was someday to merge them. But so real quick, to give you guys like a little how it went down back then. Back then, there wasn't any rap, there wasn't any hip hop, there wasn't any, that didn't exist. At one point in the country, that didn't exist. And music was just, hey, party time, right? Everybody was feeling good. Well, there was a part of every record that was known as the break. Oh, the beat would just drop, right? And you hear, oh snap, right? It was like that break was like the part where you just really wanted to get your groove on. Woo! You saved your fresh moves for the break. So the DJ would take those breaks and they would take it on one turntable, and they would take that same record and put it on the other turntable over here. And then they would extend that, just that part. Not this part. No, not that part, just this part. And they would extend it. Later, they started blending music together and creating fusion, where they would combine one song with another.
noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby. Baby, tonight's like fuego. We bout to spend the dinero. We party to the extremo, baby. Toda la noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby. Baby, tonight's like fuego. We bout to spend the dinero. We party to the extremo, 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 extremo.
So you get the gist. And they would go from there, hype up the parties, mix, make these new songs, make these new records. Over the top of that, over those beats, these guys would recite their poems. Now, this whole phenomenon took place back in the 70s when crime was at an all-time high. And out of the underbelly of some of the most oppressive statistics you could imagine came this renaissance of art and culture, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, really follow me here now for a second to imagine some of these hardcore, like gangbangers, if you would, like today's, if you would imagine gangbangers, really super violent, solving conflict through violence, and them having this problem with each other. Hey, man, yo, they're about ready to go to violence to solve their conflict, but instead, they go ahead and have a dance battle. And it's like, what? What is that about? That these hardcore criminals would turn and begin to solve conflict through rhythm, art, dance, poetry. And that became something that really just kind of I mean, it hadn't happened anywhere else in the planet. And so, in addition to those four, some include beatboxing, some include the way we dress as cultural elements of this cultural phenomenon that happened. The way we talk as our own language and dialect, our respect of our elders who've gone on before us and pioneers. Those are all traits and attributes of not just a music style, but of a culture. And that's what happened here, was that this phenomenon took place out of the worst possible statistics, out of the most oppressive of situations, came a liberation cry of overcoming, of saying, hey, we're not going to take life as it's dealt to us. Instead, we're going to make music and have these events that triumph over that. That was the DNA of early hip hop. That's how hip hop was created. It was created with that mindset of having nonviolent conflict resolution. I mean, crazy to think about that manifested from some of the most quote unquote scary segments of society. Came this renaissance of, hey man, we're going to solve our conflict through rhythm, art, poetry, and dance. And so one of the kickers is it's also indigenous to America. It came from here, and then its roots traveled all over the world and became a global culture enjoyed by many. And so kind of the framework of what I came up in was that kind of hip hop. Hip hop has changed over the years, and that's for another time, another day of what different kinds of hip hop has formed over time. But the conception of the turntables and the conception of using these to move crowds and to be a part of events started from such a DNA of positivity and liberation that I think a lot of our youth can relate to that story of overcoming. Hey, I'm overcoming. the statistical certainty that's been given to me, I don't have to take that. Instead, I could triumph over that. And that was the psychic fuel in much of what we had back then. And so as I bottle that and as I took that and combined that with the facilitation and leadership, youth training and consulting and the youth work that I was doing at the same time, once, instead of keeping those separate, once they fused, it became what I do today. And it turned into One Entertainment and all that came with it, you know, just support my family and not, you know, like Fortune 500, you know, but I'm rich in what matters anyway. And so with that comes some guidelines and some pro tips that maybe some of you out there can use. And again, I you know, like years ago, music started getting pirated. And so the record label's reaction was to do less. And I remember me thinking, man, don't do less, do more. And that became the new rule. The artists that were willing to give their music instead of worrying about it being stolen were able to build a brand and were able to be successful through all that Napster days and pirating days and all that. So that's the same philosophy also that I'm doing today, is sharing some of the behind the scenes format parts. So number one, well, they're not in order, but they're just random. And if you have a question too, I also want to make sure I give time. I'll scroll through some of these questions as they come in. Yeah, all right. Appreciate it. Okay. So you can't just drop any DJ into a corporate or conference setting. I know that sounds limiting. It's like, man, you were just all like real like hope and everything's good. And then here you are, some people. What I mean by that is that there are certain elements in a corporate and conference setting that are necessary, that aren't necessary in the everyday coming and goings of DJ world. When I DJed in clubs, when I DJed events, there are certain things that come with the corporate and conference settings that I wouldn't normally have to fine tune some instincts towards. And so right off the bat, you can't just drop any DJ in that setting or in that role. It's not just a plug and play situation. There's a certain level of professionalism that has to kick in. Because tell you what, the truth is, I'm not the dopest DJ. Surprise. I'm not the dopest scratcher, cutter, beat mixer, whatever. I have even friends that are like 1,000 times better than me at actually DJing. But making the jump over to the production side involves another gear of professionalism and realizing that at the end of the day, it's not about you. So when I'm trying to DJ the club world, and a lot of people who want to go into DJing or want to go into this line of work, they're thinking on their minds, man, I want to be the guy. I want to be the girl. I want to be boss, right? It's all about me. I'm dope. I'm fresh. It's the DJ show. Well, when you move this over into the conference world or a corporate setting or a content delivery side of things, well, now all of a sudden, it's no longer about you. So this no longer is about me. Now, the conference becomes more important than my part. I am now a piece to a larger puzzle. I'm important, right? I play a part and it's important, but I have to have an ingrained form of humility kick in. I don't mean like that fake humility, like, oh, I'm so sacred on a good way. Come and give me good words. Not that kind of sacred, not that kind of humble. But I mean humble in the sense that you recognize that it's not about you, that there's bigger things in play than your part. And that if you play your part, you help the whole. And that kind of mindset is shifted. You have to be able to get to that gear. If you want to take this into that other setting, you have to be willing to let some of the ego and the bravado and the self part of it go, because the greater work is done when the whole happens. So sometimes that means I might have to dial my portion up uncomfortably and be like, oh, I don't want to be all out there, but I will if it helps. Sometimes I have to dial me back and be like, you know what? This next segment doesn't need a DJ show. Typically, this comes up with light guys. I have to tell my light guys all the time, put the lights on the crowd. Don't put them on me. It's not about me. It's about them having a good time. So you can't just drop any DJ rule. Pro tip, is that it's not about you. When you start to do this as content providers, and you start to work and form this and match this into our wellness world, it has to come with a sense of humility. That's just the only way around it. Also, seats over stage. Seats over stage. This is this is gold for conference throwers, for event planners. And again, I'm just gonna give it out. These are some of the behind the scenes implement things that we implement that we don't really talk about, but these are crucial to a successful event. Seats over stage. What does that mean? Seats are greater than stage. So back when I was traveling a couple months ago, before all this disruption, I stayed at, I'm a Hampton guy, or Hilton Honors or whatever. So I stay at those little Hampton Inns or whatever. And so they have these shower curtains. Right now you're thinking, what in the heck is he talking about shower curtains for? Stay with me. Stay with me. This picture here is an example of shower curtains that are hung correctly. All right. Here is an example of some shower curtains that are hung incorrectly. All right. So this one is correct. And you can tell it's correct because the fold goes inside. Anybody who's taken a successful shower knows you got to have that little piece like that so that the water doesn't get out, right? So that's hung correctly. Stay with me. This was hung incorrectly. And although blurry, you can tell that that's folded out. So now all the water is going to drip out. And that first time you put your socks on, you're going to step in what? A puddle. And then, why? Because someone hung that wrong. And you might think to yourself, what does this have to do with anything? Well, this one that's hung correctly was hung from the perspective of the user, not by the perspective of the hanger. So this was hung correctly for the person who was going to use it. The other one was hung probably from the perspective of the hanger. I'm going to throw it up real quick. So they threw it up from their perspective, but it wasn't as good for the user. And a lot of times we throw conferences and we throw events without fully thinking about who's going to use it, without fully thinking about how it's going to be used. We want to hang it. We're so excited that we got our cool thing to hang, and we haven't put as much emphasis in who's going to use this thing we're hanging, and are we hanging it in a way that's going to be beneficial. Seats over stage means which one in this picture is most important. Now, I don't mean which one in this picture is better than the other person. We're all the same. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is at the intersection of who do we cater our content for? Do I cater my content for this guy? Or do I cater my content for this guy? Who is who we work for? Now, those of us who throw conferences, those of us who are content providers, a lot of time it's real easy to think about this guy. Oh, he's famous. Oh, he's special. Oh, oh my gosh, running for office. Oh my goodness, we're so excited to have them. And you know what? We are excited. And you know what? We should host them and we should care for them. They should get all that they deserve and then some. But if I have to make a choice and think about what's going to who I need to serve more, I need to pay more attention to this guy. The person in that seat is who it's all for. So it doesn't matter who you bring. It doesn't matter how famous they are or how wonderful they are. If they don't reach this guy, then all of the work that we did was for nothing because we didn't emphasize on who was going to use it. We didn't emphasize on how it was going to be used. And so going forwards, one of the keys to success or guidelines or pro tips that helped me was changing my framework. Instead of making everything for the stage, instead we make everything for the seat. One of the things that gets on my last nerve, my pet peeve, is horrible sound. Can't stand it. It just gets all over me. Obviously, I'm in this field, so maybe I'm just being sensitive. But the reason I can't stand horrible sound is because a lot of times when it comes time to hang our conference, and we hang it from our perspective of the hanger, we forget that the person we're hanging it for, especially with youth conferences, we're hanging it with young people who have earbuds in, who have great sound, who have beats, who are listening to high fidelity all the time. And then they show up to our event and they have to sit through 2 hours of hard to hear, tinny audio. Oh my gosh. Now, why do I care so much? It isn't for me. I'm not trying to be a diva and, oh, it has to be to my standard. It's because I realize that the sound matters to this guy. The sound matters to that young person in the seat. That's who that sound matters for. They need to walk into that assembly and hear the music, but not just hear it, feel it, and be like, whoa, take their earbuds out and be like, wow, this event is for me. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We got to acknowledge the culture. Now, us as indigenous people, that would seem a no-brainer, right? Acknowledge the culture. Well, culture is important to us. So of course we would acknowledge the culture. Why would we have a problem with acknowledging the culture? What culture am I talking about acknowledging? I'm talking about, who is it for? Who are you hanging what you're hanging for? Who are you content providing for? Do you know that person? Have you thought about who that person is on a personal level and their culture and how they receive information and what's important to them and what are their comforts? And whenever Hollywood wants to sit people down for 2 hours, they spend an enormous amount of money, right? Seats are reclined, audio is amazing, video is great. So obviously I'm not saying that we all throw, $7 million conferences. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that we need to care about the receiver, right? And so acknowledging their culture simply means figuring out who they are. Who is that person that needs this content that we're providing? So when I got ready for this, when Julian was like, hey man, can you do another hour? I was like, wow, hold on a second. Native Wellness Institute, one of the flagship organizations in Indian country that do conferences that range, right? From GONAs to big youth conferences to wellness retreats, they run the gamut, right? And there's a lot of what I call almost like pro conference attenders in our gene pool, right? And so I thought, man, we have the opportunity to share some of this with them who also throw events and who also are content providers and who also are receivers of content, and then can let the Jaleens and let the Indian collectives know, hey, this is how we want to be reached. This is what we prefer. This is how we like, so that we can have a good example of the culture of the people that we're serving, right? So like when it comes to youth conferences, we have to be aware of youth culture. We have to acknowledge it. Providers of it have to acknowledge not just native culture. Yes, we have to acknowledge that. We're going to impart that. But if I'm going to impart my native values and my traditional values on a young native person that might not have ever been exposed to it, I have to first acknowledge their youth culture, and then we can swap. We do this cultural exchange where I'm swapping some of their cultural values for some of our cultural values. And then this beautiful cultural exchange happens. This whole thing, right? Turntables in an indigenous conference. Why would you even do that, right? Why would you put that together? It's because you're setting an environment where on a taste and texture level, they know it's a them event. That's crucial. They know it's for them. When those young students walk into a gym, they're in that gym every day. They see that gym all the time. But when they walk in that gym and the turntables are playing and they hear a beat, I love watching their face go, whoa, 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 whoa. Or I love watching them walk into an auditorium or a youth conference and they hear this music playing with intentionality. Like, whoa, hold on a second. What's going on in here? And within the first couple seconds, internally, they've shifted and they've said, hey, this event is for me. And what I always say is I buy the first speaker a good 15 to 20-second head start when it comes to them sharing content. Now, after that, you have to share good content after that. But I at least buy you a good 15 to a minute and a half head start, because by the time the first speaker comes out, the youth are already relaxed. Their guards are down. They're like, oh, okay, this is a us event. I thought I was coming here for something lame. Hood up, earbuds in, sitting up at the top, not wanting to engage. But then they walk in and some people have taken some small steps to make this event about them. And now they walk in and their heads are like, the earbuds come out. They may still sit up there. Shoot, their hood may stay up. Okay. But they're starting to track now. They're starting to key in. But it's our job to be the ones to initiate that reach and make sure that we're reaching for them. You got to be greatness minded. You got to be mindful of that, right? They're great. And because they're great, we want to reach them with excellence and with greatness. We don't want to give them just whatever. We want to give them the best possible, correct? And so that means us doing the work on our end to make sure we're speaking their language. So here's a beneficial tip that doesn't just apply to my lane, or it doesn't just apply to my world. It also applies to, I think, most people's world in general. Those of us, almost any of us really, with our line of work in our professional careers, in the sense that, like, my profession has orchestrated itself into 3 lanes. And those 3 lanes, if you wanted to do something like this, then it takes these 3 lanes to make it possible. Native Wellness goes through this. I go through this. Other orgs go through this. Any content provider, any organization pretty much have these 3 lanes that they have to figure out. And so these are lanes. When I was just a club guy and doing what I want to do and DJ and then go to IHOP and then go home, that was cool. But when I wanted to make this a profession and become professional, then I realized that I had to have these 3 lanes. Otherwise, I wasn't going to have any traction to grow forward. And those 3 lanes is you got to have a technical lane, your creative lane, and your administrative lane. So your technical is balanced by your creative. In other words, you can only be as creative as you are technical. So if I want to do something creative here, if I want to do something like, I didn't practice this, I'm just pulling this up. You can't see my turntables for a second, but you can hear me though. I know you can hear me. So if I wanted to do something, you hear that? If I wanted to do something creative, I have to know the buttons to push. I have to know the song. I have to know when to come in and when to come out. I have to know which lever does what, right? So to the degree of my technical, I can be creative, but my creative is capped at the level that I'm willing to master the technical. So my photographer friends out there, you get the photography, right? The f-stops, the apertures, the lighting, all that, right? And so you can only be as creative as you master the technical. And I remember I like seeing these young guys that they're still in the technical, that they can't be very creative yet because they're still trying to master that technical. They're like trying to get the lighting down right. They're trying to get all the, f-stops and apertures correct. And they're trying to do the math, right? In their head, you can see them. And they take these pictures that, hey, the lighting actually looks pretty good, but sorry, the person you took a picture of, their eyes are closed, or there's something in the background you failed to look at. The artistic part, right? Once you get the technical mastered, once you're like, bam, bam, I know my camera, I know all my gears and buttons. Now you can go to that next dimension. Now you can be creative. Now you can go, ooh, so you already got the lighting down. You already got that part instinctual. You already mastered the technical. So now you can look at that person and be like, hold on, let me frame them like this. Ooh, that looks like now you're getting creative. And now you're like, wait, let me wait for them to smile in their eyes. Got them. Let me wait. Oh, you know, you're able to catch them just the right time. You're able to be extremely creative because you've taken the time to master the creative. And so that's our job, is to make sure we're spending time on the technical so that we can be as creative as possible. But that third lane is the administrative. That admin lane, that's the work to get the work. That's the, see if this still kicks on. That's the stuff you got to do to get to do, right? That's the emails, the invoices, the contracts, the budgets, marketing, all that stuff. You got to do, again, club DJ, do my parties, go home, call it a day, do it as a hobby. That's great. That's fine. But when you have to take this over into the professional world, oh man, now I have to do some admin work. Now all of a sudden I have to work in this field. I have to train myself for the administration side. I got to find the person and budget for them, because that stuff has to happen or you don't get the work. If you don't do the work to get the work, you can never do the work. So, and that is not my strongest suit. That's the part I struggle with the most, because I'm busy trying to be creative and technical, and I sometimes forget the admin part or the follow-up part so these are some pro tips, the secret sauce behind the scenes of some of my success that may help some people in the same field, may help some people in similar fields. But since I'm pretty bad at this administrative part, I made sure today to include this part. My wife's always telling me, you do all this stuff everywhere and then you forget to connect with them. See, connecting with you guys is part of my administrative part. That's when we get to connect for long term, right? We get to be on my Instagram, be with Twitter, we get to talk to each other. You know, I do my thing, and then when my thing is over, I recluse back and I forgot to do my administrative part, which is making sure I'm available. And so today I'm making sure I'm doing that by putting this on the screen today. If you wouldn't mind checking me out when you get a chance, it's my Instagram, it's my Twitter, at Emcee One, that's how you spell it. Or if you go on Facebook, since we're on Facebook already live, my personal page is Marcus Anthony Guinn. And then I think there's Emcee One in parentheses somewhere. Or if you want my artist page, then it's one.entertainment. That's where you find that at. And so speaking of administrative and making sure you're covering the bases, I want to make sure we're thankful Native Wellness Institute for letting me take over. I want to look up some of these comments and stuff as we look at our sponsors here. Indian Collective, IndianCollective.org. That's where you can go and man, go to their website. Website's dope and it's really cool. I feel like we're in a new era right now with what's going on creatively in Indian country, with the level of excellence we got out there, with people doing some great things at high levels. And so make sure you check that out. Look here, 4 elements. Yes, got the 4 elements. You are correct. Shout out to Zulu Nation. Yes, hip hop. When did I get into the DJ game? So Lloyd got into the DJ game. So again, when I was a young person, I used to drool over it. But it was 1994 when I started getting to hang with Coach Shock. We weren't called Coach Shock Camp back then. Basically, Brian and his brother would go to Unity, and they had a turntable system. So in 94, I fell in with Unity. I was already doing a mentorship program with Eagles mentoring in Oklahoma City, and it was multicultural or whatever. And then I met Unity through them. It was right at the time, man. It was a Red Earth powwow, and some of my friends were going to the 49. And meanwhile, down the hallway, at the event center where the powwow was, there was some dope music. I was like, man, who's playing this dope music? I was from Cali, so I was like, who's playing this? I went in there, and that was Brian Free Joe, Keith IMC. They were, hey man, Keith's a little bitty guy, a little young. He was younger than me, and they were trying to raise money to go to the National Unity Conference. So I befriended them there. They had turntables, they had a rig. they were MCs and DJs and B-boys, and they were part of the culture. And so that's when I had access. I had played around with it like at times, but 94 is when I was able to actually play with the vinyl. And so, yeah, what's up? Yes, the sound matters. And I hope, sorry, I made a big thing about it, and I'm playing on in an area that I don't even know if it sounded good earlier. So I appreciate, hopefully, I talked all crazy about it, probably sounded distorted, who knows. But thank you for all your great comments, people. It is we got a couple more minutes here if you guys want. I've had a couple people ask me to play out a little bit, so I might play some music here. Thank you, Teresa, Thomas, Jacob, Crane. Shout outs. Petra. Oh, Ruth, appreciate it. Thanks for your question, Lloyd. Tanisha's watching. What up? Teresa Sheldon, props. Mark Morales. Oh, Tommy Ghost Dog. What up? Yes, sir. Will, yes, what up, my brother? And all the Native Wellness Institute people. Don't forget, check out NN Collective. You're also Native Wellness Institute. You know them. I'm gonna go ahead and Facebook might mute this. Oh, there's algorithms. So if you play music that it recognizes, it might shut you down. So I might play something that is my own on the way out here. I appreciate you rocking with me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm gonna play for a little bit. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I'll be watching for you here. Yes. Lisa, I have heard that hip hop's not traditional, and I respect that. I definitely respect that position. For, you know, if you look at hip hop today, a lot of the content that comes out might not be mirroring some of our native values, right? So it would be real easy as a snap glance to say, well, that's not us, because you look at that, it doesn't line up with some of our traditional values. If you go back to its roots, what I was saying earlier, you start to see some similarities where the native value systems and cultural value points were mirrored in its conception, right? That's where I stay. I stay in that place where those elements were liberation over oppressive conditions, where it's, even though the situation might seem bleak, we're going to rally, we're going to rise, we're going to overcome, and so we're going to dare to rise. So that's how I would answer that for you. Not saying that I own that's the correct answer. That's just my answer. You asked for what I would say to that. That's what I would say. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Killer Cali. Traded in my earthquakes for Tornado Alley. Been to the mountain top and through the valleys. Working in them clubs and them car show rallies. Met a lot of hustlers with some OG riders. More gold on them cars than old King Midas. I find this interesting how things go. We used to bum rush the show, be the first to flow. Go cruising with Roberto, his Impala would scrape. Be busting freestyles over dope mixtapes. Now when I say mixtape, don't my old school vet, I'm talking about cassette, tape deck, CD to MP3. Now you can go to iTunes, find MC Me, that's EMCEEONE. Then hook it to your ride, you can follow me because
This is for the wrinkles and the automobiles. Drop top baddies, those keeping it red. All the party people just around the way because this type of stuff happens every day.
this type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens. Looking for my dad, but couldn't find him. My family was either in bars or behind them. Now I rhymed them 16 at a time, son. I try to get 5 on my cell phone line. Then time in for Great Space Coaster. The goal in life was having wife and roaster. Ghost patterns, but no gun, no holster. Low Rider magazine with 4-page poster. Met lighter shade of brown down in Dallas, Texas. And he took first place. Honda looked like a Lexus. Kid frosted Kansas would drink till excess. I'm alcohol and drug free. I'll tell you what's next is. Changing up our culture, but preserving our values. Not giving the what to, but also the how to. Replacing the how comes and all the about tos. And anything with them with something to bounce to.
This is for the wrinkles and them automobiles. Drop top baddies, those keeping it red. All the party people from around the way because this type of stuff happens every day.
This type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens every day. This type of stuff happens every day. Hi, little man. I see you watching the spokes. I see you staring at gold flakes and watching your folks. I hope you know. Think your life is hollow. You can play the leader, kid, not just follow. Life is more than hydraulics, drop top frolics, alcoholics. All these kids flock to where the fame's at, like a moth to the light, or where the flame's at. Don't obtain if you can't maintain that. Candy paint job, just saying, man. That's a rhyme, yeah. We got crime in the streets. We got drama with baby mamas and lives to see. But life can change, rearrange for the better. Best-selling book, read the red letters. Changed up the heart, the art, and the track. Rolling down the street, baby, seat in the bag. Cause
This is for the wrinkles and them automobiles. Drop top baddies, those keeping it red. All the paid people from around the way because this type of stuff happens every day. This is for the wrinkles and them automobiles. Drop top baddies, those keeping it red. All the paid people from around the way because this type of stuff happens every day. This is for the wrinkles and them automobiles. This is for the wrinkles and them
Shout out to my boy Tab, Black Eyed Peas, Kinetic Wellness. Thanks to Indian Collective. Blessings.
Toda la noche rompemos, al otro día volvemos. Tú sabes cómo lo hacemos, baby. Baby, tonight's like fuego. We bout to spend the dinero. We party to the extremo, 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 extremo. Ritmo. Son ni Rigo ni Sanay, nah. Sin estilista luzco fly. La Rosalía me dice que luzco guay. No te lo niego porque yo sé lo que hay. Lo que se ve no se pregunta. Soy tan pero tengo claro que es mi culpa. Como Canelo en el ring nada me asusta. Vivo en mi osi y la paz no me la tumba.